Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be sharing a really difficult story that has impacted my life a lot, and that is my sexual exploitation story. This occurred when I was 14 years old. I had just started high school and was really excited to branch out, meet new people. This was also around the same time when I was transitioning to becoming vegan, and I've been vegan for 7 years now, as some of you may know. I began a YouTube channel during that time to promote the vegan message. My entire channel was about being positive and being vegan, so I called it Positively Vegan, and I loved it. I have always loved video creation, and I've really enjoyed connecting with people on these kinds of platforms. Was also very naive at the time, which is no fault of my own, or anyone else's for that matter. I was 14 years old, and when I turned 15, I got a direct message on Instagram by an anonymous account. It said, "Send nudes?" ? I was only 15. I just turned 15. I was horrified, and instead of deleting the message, I responded because I was so angry. I said, 1, you, 2, you're blocked. And as a result of me sending that message, I got an immediate message back as I was about to press the block button. And that message said, "Wait, I'm so sorry, this is a friend of yours in high school. It was a prank. It was so stupid. My friends made me do it." Something to that effect. I was angry, so I responded and was like, "That's not funny," all of these other. Then the person told me who they were, and this was a person I had a crush on who was in my English class my freshman year of high school, who I had had multiple projects with, who I knew pretty well. So at that point in time, I felt comfortable, because I thought, oh, it's a prank, and I know this person, and he seems like a great guy, have liked him for a while. And then the rest of our conversation, we just started chatting about life and things we enjoy, and the chat was just friendly for a long period of time. This went on for weeks. And one day we started talking about really deep emotional things, and I shared a trauma of mine with this person, thinking that it was the person who I had English class with, and I shared with them a secret that I hadn't told anyone before. And that was that my grandmother and her ex-boyfriend had abused me throughout my childhood. I confided in this person because they had confided in me a similar story. So I felt very comfortable in sharing that. I got a message in response that said, "If you don't send me a picture, then I'm gonna tell the entire school what happened to you." I felt sick to my stomach, like my whole body just froze in that exact moment. I remember it so clearly, and this was 6 years ago. After that message, I had no idea what to do. I begged and I pleaded, and I said, "How could you do this to me?" All of these different things. But he continued to threaten me. I shared one image, thinking that that was it. I would send it, it would be over, and I could block this person and never speak to them again and avoid them in school. That is not how it went. I ended up spending over 100 days being sexually exploited day in, day out by this person online. The name used throughout this entire trauma was Adam Justin. Supposed to be the nickname of my perpetrator. I kept it a secret because I was mortified. I felt like I had let it happen. I felt like I deserved it somehow. That entire night I was just sobbing in my bed, and I grabbed my phone, and I remember texting an acquaintance. I didn't have many friends at this period of time in my life, and I texted this person and I said, "I am so scared. I have no idea what to do. this person just asked me for nudes and I sent one, and now they're threatening to send it to other people. This person told me, oh, that happens all the time. Oh, that's happened to me before. Oh, it's not a big deal, it'll go away. And I felt so incredibly alone. And after that, I felt like if I told anyone else, they would either blame me or tell me that it wasn't a big deal. The next morning, woke up to messages upon threats, asking me to send more and more. And eventually, it turned into having to send 7 different pictures in 7 different sexual positions, to having to send videos of me twerking and harming myself. This person liked to see me in pain. Is honestly the hardest part for me to talk about, because that's when all of my personal self-harm started, because of Adam Justin. While I was in class, text me saying he knew where I lived, threatening to hurt people that I was close to. I had no reason to doubt my perpetrator. And every time I would walk by this person in school, in the hallways, I would have panic attacks. I remember one time I ran into the bathroom and just puked in the toilet while my best friend held the door shut, because I was just so absolutely terrified and disgusted by seeing this person. A lot of people don't understand, well, why didn't you block him? I tried over and over and over, and he would simply create new accounts. A feature that came out after all of this is block all other accounts that this person creates. That wasn't a feature at the time of my exploitation. Every time I would block him, he would come up with a new account and message me again. And each time I would unblock my perpetrator, it would get worse. The threats would come more often, the harm that he had me cause to myself would be even worse, and it was humiliating and degrading. I got very distant. And this was during the time that I was on YouTube, posting almost daily, when I finally hit my breaking point and blocked him, and I said, this is for good, this is the last time. He messaged me while I was in the waiting room for therapy, and on another account, and said, I just sent your nudes to 3 different people that we go to high school with. I went into therapy right after getting that message, and I just broke down. I began sobbing hysterically. My therapist could not calm me down. I showed her the message. She told me, I have to tell your mom. And I then immediately started sobbing again, begging her not to tell, because I was terrified. I didn't want my mother to know that was going on, that I had sent those pictures. I was scared of getting in trouble, because he told me that sending child pornography is a crime, and I'm a child, so me sending a photo of myself nude is a crime. They would never prosecute a child when they are being blackmailed and forced to send images because you're the victim of the crime. Sometimes it gets really overwhelming telling this story. My therapist told me the only way she wouldn't say anything is if I blocked him. So I blocked that account too, while absolutely sobbing. My therapist told me that I needed to tell my mother. I had no intention of doing that because I was terrified. So that night, I took a shower and got in my nicest pajamas, grabbed a bottle of pills, took half the bottle, chugged some water, and laid down in my bed. I wanted it to be over. I am so incredibly grateful that that did not work. I woke up that morning feeling groggy. I remember just feeling this intense sense of disappointment, just being upset that it didn't work. I ended up attempting suicide one more time. Once I would get messages from new accounts, I got to a point where I did not care if the entire school body saw me naked. I got to a point where I didn't care about my life anymore. I knew that I couldn't live like that. I made a really difficult decision, and that was to ignore every message I got from there on. And I can't tell you how many times I've cried. Every time my phone would vibrate or ding or I would get a message, I would be so scared out of my mind. A friend that I had in high school talked to me and became a close friend after I had blocked this person, my perpetrator, and was very kind to me. I began to open up to this person. This person was strictly a friend, and one day I decided to share what had happened. This person told me that my perpetrator was a horrible human being and deserved to be punished, and really made me feel heard. I had found an actual account, something that had actual pictures. It was finally an account that wasn't anonymous. I basically said, "You know what you did to me." When he got to respond, he explained to me that he had no idea what I was talking about, that he was confused as to why our friendship ended. And then he asked me if I would mind being put in a group chat. I ended up messaging with another girl who went to my high school. She had been asked to send explicit images by an account pretending to be this friend that I had who claimed that his nickname was Adam Justin. This Adam Justin person was fake. Told my mother all of that, and she told my dad. I remember walking up to the window that was inside the police station and talking through the speaker and saying, "I'm here to report a crime." When they asked me what crime, I was in a very public area and was only 16 and had to say that I was exploited on the internet, and I didn't even have that kind of language with it either. This investigation went on for 6 months. I went through countless interviews. I remember her looking at me one time when I was in the police station and her just telling me, "We may never find your perpetrator. This person is extremely good with technology." The IP address that this perpetrator used went into the bottom of a lake in central Missouri. One day I was told that she would be re-interviewing the male friend of mine. And I remember thinking that that was strange, but not thinking too much into it. She simply asked me how well I knew this person and if I trusted this person. And I said I know him pretty well, and yes, I do trust this person. While I was at school, I got called to her office. The detective told me that they had found out that it was, in fact, that male friend of mine. He had stolen the identity of my friend in that English class. From the period of time when I stopped responding to the messages for good to the time when I went to the police. During that time, he went from being a friend to more of a stalker in my life. He had confessed to the crime. Once the police investigation concluded, forwarded all of that information to the court, I got an attorney who would represent me and help me understand what was going on throughout the case, because I didn't have any real knowledge of the criminal justice system and how the court process worked. When the court process started, that friend of mine, who was also very affected by this situation, decided that he did not want to press charges because he didn't want to have to go through the whole court process, which was a blow to me because I knew that as a result of that, he wouldn't get charged with as many things, which could mean he wouldn't get as big of a punishment, which was a gut punch. But I knew that he had done all these things to me. I knew that I had a voice and I was going to use it, and that I was going to try to get some justice for myself and get some well-deserved punishment on him. It took about, I believe, 6 months. I might put it up here if I'm wrong. I remember having to tell my attorney in full detail the story all over again. The court process is not victim friendly, and it is grueling. I was then informed that I would need to make a victim impact statement. I showed up to that court date ready to read it. I was told that he would be sentenced to 14 days in jail. So I felt like I was going to at least get some justice. 2 weeks didn't feel like much, but it was something. And I remember my attorney coming over to me and telling me and my family that there would be no sentencing today and that we could leave, and that I would not be reading my victim impact statement that day. And I felt crushed. A month or so later, another court date happened, and at this court date he was sentenced and I was able to give my victim impact statement. I remember going up to the stand, telling the judge why he needed to have punishment and how horrible the things that he did were and the impact that they've had on my life. When I gave my victim impact statement, I fell into my attorney's arms, sobbing. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, especially because every time I would look at him, he was about this far away, sitting with his attorney. He was given 7 days in jail, 9 months probation, had to compensate me and my family for therapy, go through classes that discussed the kind of crime that he had committed. But the only thing that would not happen is he would not get on the sex offender registry. And that was my biggest thing. I wanted him on that registry so that other people in the community could know that he was a danger. They said that that was not possible to happen because his grandmother had an in-home daycare. The fact that they were using that as an excuse for him to not get more time and not get put on the sex offender registry was even more disturbing to me. He spent his 7 days in jail, and then he was released to be on probation for 9 months. And when that concluded, I was terrified that he would reach out to me because the probation period was also the amount of time that my no contact order was in effect. And after that no contact order was out of effect, if he reached out to me, he would not get in trouble by authorities. Luckily, he didn't reach out after that. I think he became well aware that I was not going to be quiet about what he did to me. My sexual exploitation story is not uncommon, and that is the main reason I share this story, because I don't want this to happen to anyone else, which is why I have become an advocate and I speak at high schools about my experience of sexual exploitation so that our younger generation is educated. When I started sharing my story, I received a lot of people coming up to me telling me that they had experienced very similar circumstances, telling me that my story gave them hope and helped them through their healing process, and that is more than I could ever wish for. My perpetrator ended up being suspended and was recommended to be expelled. He ended up not coming back to the school and did leave for the remainder of the school year. As a result of that whole situation, I decided that I wanted to get out of high school as soon as possible and leave that place because of all of the horrible memories that surrounded that environment for me. So I graduated a year early and was able to then start college. The case did not conclude until the middle of my freshman year in college.